There are many players taken number 1 overall in the NBA draft. Some would go on to become Hall of Famers and be considered as top 5 NBA players to ever play the game of basketball. Others would never truly live up to their number 1 overall pick and will be considered busts. Then there are number 1 overall picks that are often forgotten. These players were on the path of becoming some of the greatest players to ever play the game of basketball, but due to unfortunate circumstances, their career was cut short, and because of this, people often forget the impact that these players made on the game of basketball. So to give these players the respect they deserve, here are the 10 most underrated players in NBA history. Number 1, 1958, Elgin Baylor. Picked number 1 overall in the 1958 NBA draft, Baylor was seen as one of the best college players at the time, averaging 31 points per game in his 3 seasons in college at Iowa and Seattle, and would make an immediate impact on the Lakers in 1958, winning the NBA Rookie of the Year, and leading the Lakers from last place the previous year to the NBA Finals, where they would lose to the Boston Celtics. During his career, Baylor was considered one of the best scorers in NBA history, averaging over 27 points per game during his 13-year NBA career, leading the Lakers to the NBA Finals 8 times and holding the NBA record for the most points scored in the finals game with 61. Problems started in 1965, where Baylor would suffer a knee injury and continue to have nagging knee injuries until his retirement in 1972. Had he not suffered these injuries, he would undoubtedly be considered one of the greatest scorers of all time. But Baylor wasn't just a great scorer, he was considered one of the all-time great rebounders for his position, averaging over 13 rebounds throughout his entire career. Baylor played alongside NBA legend Jerry West and constantly lost to the Celtics. This, along with his nagging injuries, Baylor's accomplishments and impact on the game will often always be overlooked or underrated. Number 2, 1961, Walt Bellamy. Bellamy was a 4-year standout talent from Indiana University, where he would average over 20 points per game, averaging 17 rebounds per game as well, holding the school's all-time record in most career rebounds and double-doubles. Selected number 1 overall in the 1961 draft by the Chicago Packers, Bellamy was named NBA Rookie of the Year with an incredible average of 31 points per game along with 19 rebounds. His rookie season average is second all-time to only Wilt Chamberlain. While Bellamy would never score as much as his rookie season, he would become one of the league's top rebounders, ranking 11th all-time in rebounding, yet he never made an All-NBA team. After his first 4 seasons, he failed to make an All-Star appearance, mostly due to the fact that he was constantly moved to different teams during his career. After 2 seasons, the Chicago Packers became the Baltimore Bullets, then Bellamy was traded to the Knicks, then Detroit, then Atlanta towards the end of his career, never winning an NBA championship. Had he been in a more stable situation, he may have been considered one of the greatest big men that have ever played. Number 3, 1968, Elvin Hayes. Hayes was a standout college prospect from the University of Houston, averaging 31 points per game and 17 rebounds per game in his 3 years at Houston. His most notable moment came in 1968, where he would face Lou Alcindor and the UCLA Bruins, snapping the Bruins' 47-game winning streak. Hayes was selected first overall in the 1968 NBA draft, joining the NBA with the San Diego Rockets in 1968. He went on to lead the NBA in scoring in his rookie season with 28 points per game along with 17 rebounds. In 1972, Hayes was acquired by the Baltimore Bullets. He teamed up with Wes Unseld to form a dominating front court combination. Hayes and Unseld would lead the Washington Bullets to 3 NBA Finals in 1975, 1978, and 1979, winning the NBA title in 1978. In his career with the Rockets and Bullets, Hayes played 1,300 games over 16 seasons, finishing 9th all-time in points, 4th all-time in rebounds, and is the all-time leading scorer for the Washington Bullets, now Wizards. Hayes never missed more than 2 games in any of his 16 seasons in the NBA. In addition to his scoring title in 1968, he led the NBA in rebounding in 1970 and 1974. He accomplished all these things, yet many don't include him in their top 5 centers of all time. Because of this, his accomplishments will often be underrated. Number 4. 1974, Bill Walton. Bill Walton achieved superstardom playing for John Wooden and the UCLA Bruins in the early 1970s, winning 3 consecutive College Player of the Year awards while leading the Bruins to 2 national titles. Taken number 1 overall by the Portland Trail Blazers in the 1974 NBA Draft, Walton's first 2 seasons were killed by injury as the Blazers missed the playoffs both years. It wasn't until the 1976-77 season that he was healthy enough to play 65 games, in which Walton would lead the NBA in both reboundings per game and block shots per game that season. In his first postseason, Walton led the Portland Trail Blazers to the NBA title over the favored Philadelphia 76ers, despite losing the first 2 games of the series. Walton was named the Finals MVP. In the very next season, the Blazers won 50 of their first 60 games before Walton suffered a broken foot, what turned out to be the first in a string of foot and ankle injuries that would cut short his career. Walton would later be traded to the Boston Celtics towards the end of his career, becoming a reliable backup to McHale and Parrish. Walton played a career-high 80 games and received the NBA Sixth Man of the Year award that season en route to an NBA championship, becoming the only player to have ever won an NBA Finals MVP, Sixth Man Award, and regular season MVP. Had injuries not derailed Walton's career, he would not only been considered one of the best college players of all time, but NBA centers as well. Number 5. 1980, Joe Barry Carroll. Joe Barry Carroll was considered one of the best University of Purdue players of all time, as he holds the all-time school records for career rebounds and blocks, and ranks second in career points. After his 3 seasons at Purdue, Carroll was selected number 1 overall by the Golden State Warriors in the 1980 NBA Draft, where as a rookie he averaged 18 points and 9 rebounds. He continued to grow with the Warriors as 2 seasons later he would average a career-high 24 points per game to go along with 8 rebounds, scoring his career high of 52 points against the Utah Jazz. Throughout his career as a Warrior, he would finish as the franchise's 3rd top defensive rebounder, 4th top offensive rebounder, and 8th in points per game and 9th in total points. While Carroll was a great scorer for the Warriors, to the surprise of many, Carroll left the Warriors in 1984 to play in Italy with Simac Milano, won the Italian League Championship, and won the FIBA Croc Cup. He would return to the NBA and still average 21 points per game the next season. While Carroll's number proved that he was a great rebounder and scorer in the NBA, Carroll's teams rarely made the playoffs, only reaching the Western Conference semifinals once during his career, but had a great impact on the game of basketball outside of the United States. His accomplishments outside of the NBA will often always be overlooked. Number 6. 1982, James Worthy. James Worthy was already a well-known name before heading into the NBA. As a junior power forward, was a leading scorer for the Tar Heels NCAA championship team, which featured Sam Perkins and freshman Michael Jordan. Scoring 28 points in the final game as a collegiate player, Worthy was selected number 1 overall by the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers in the 1982 NBA Draft. During his rookie season, Worthy would average 13 points per game before breaking his leg during the season. Worthy emerged as a feared clutch performer in 1985, where he would average 23 points per game against the Celtics in the finals, winning the series. Then again in 1988, during the finals against the Pistons, Worthy once again excelled, scoring 28 points, 9 rebounds in Game 6, and a stat line of a triple-double that sealed a Game 7 finals. Worthy played in 4 Game 7s during his career, and he ranked 6th all-time in the Lakers team scoring. In 1992, Worthy would have season-ending knee surgery, which robbed him of much of his quickness and leaping ability. After struggling with knee pain in the 1994 preseason, Worthy announced his retirement in November 1994 after 12 seasons in the NBA. While Big Game James achieved many great things during his career, many would fail to put Worthy in the discussion of the top 10 players of all time simply because of the team for which he played on, which includes 2 Hall of Famers of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson. This, compounded with injuries towards the end of his career, stalled Worthy's career from being one of the greatest players of all time. Number 7. 1983, Ralph Sampson. Ralph Sampson, a 7'4" phenom from the University of Virginia, a 3-time College Player of the Year, was seen as the next big thing in the NBA and was selected first in the 1983 NBA draft by the Houston Rockets. As a rookie, Sampson showed enormous promise as he would average 21 points and 11 rebounds and won the Rookie of the Year and played in the All-Star game during his rookie season. Yet, the Rockets only managed a 29-53 record. In the 1984 season, they would again earn the right to pick first in the NBA draft, choosing Hakeem Olajuwon out of the University of Houston. The next season, Sampson would average 22 points and 10 rebounds, and would have many memorable moments throughout his early career, including a game winner over the Lakers, which would send the Houston Rockets to the final. Yet after that, Sampson's career was constantly derailed by injuries, as he played just 441 games in 10 seasons, slightly more than half of the 820 scheduled. Due to this, Sampson never averaged more than his sophomore season in the NBA and fell out of favor with coaches in Houston, and he would end up playing for 4 teams during his career: Houston, Golden State, Sacramento, and Washington. Had injuries not fallen upon Sampson and the Houston Rockets, their twin tower duo would have dominated the NBA for years. Number 8. 1991, Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson was an extraordinary player out of UNLV. Johnson was an explosive player, helping him rank 12th in the school's all-time scoring and 7th in the all-time rebounding, despite playing only 2 seasons with the Rebels. Johnson was selected first overall in the 1991 NBA draft by the Charlotte Hornets and won the NBA Rookie of the Year award in his first season, averaging over 19 points and 11 rebounds in his rookie season. Johnson became a part of the revitalized Charlotte Hornets franchise in the 90s, which reached their height of popularity with players like Alonzo Mourning, Muggsy Bogues, and Dale Curry. Johnson became the first Hornet to start an All-Star game in 1993, where he would average his best statistical season with averages of 22 points per game and 10 rebounds. Johnson was a highly explosive player coming out of college. However, due to injury to his back, Johnson was forced to develop an all-around game with an improved outside shot. In the 1994-1995 season, he made 81 three-pointers, nearly 60 more than his first 3 seasons combined. After 5 strong years with the Hornets, Johnson would play for the New York Knicks, where he would have an infamous play in Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Pacers, for which Johnson would perform a 4-point play, which ended up sending the Knicks to the finals. By 2001, Johnson announced his early retirement from basketball due to chronic back problems that had plagued him for years, after his point production has decreased for 3 straight years. Johnson created many great moments for both the Charlotte Hornets franchise and the New York Knicks, and his value to these teams will often always be underrated. Number 9. 1993, Chris Webber. As a collegiate athlete, Chris Webber was known as one of the best power forwards, forming what would be known now as the Fab Five, that reached the NCAA championship in 1992 and 1993. But we all know what would happen after that, as Webber and Michigan would get stripped of all the NCAA accomplishments as a result of Webber's direct involvement in the Ed Martin scandal. Webber was selected with the Orlando Magic with the first pick in the 1993 NBA draft, but was immediately traded to the Warriors for Penny Hardaway. Webber had an outstanding rookie season, averaging 17 points and 9 rebounds and winning the NBA Rookie of the Year award. And in his first season, he led the Warriors back to the playoffs. Webber was then traded in his second season to the Washington Bullets, now Wizards, where he spent 3 seasons, most of his seasons limited due to injuries. But in 1997, he led the Bullets to the playoffs for the first time in 9 years. Webber was then acquired by the Kings, where he would transform the Kings into one of the league's top franchises and NBA title contenders. However, a devastating loss in the Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals in 2002 cost the Kings their chance at a title run, as in the Western Conference semifinals against the Mavericks the next year, Weber suffered a career-threatening knee injury that forced him to miss nearly a year of action. Weber moved to two different teams towards the end of his career, the Sixers and the Detroit Pistons, before nagging injuries forced him to retire. Yet Weber still had 10 seasons in which he averaged over 20 points, and 6 seasons in which he averaged a double-double with rebounds. He was considered one of the best power forwards in the 90s, but would fail often when it counted most, as the Kings lost 3 Game 7s in the Western Conference Finals under Weber. Had the Kings won these games and Weber seen the finals, his legacy would be greater than it is today, and he would be seen as one of the best power forwards to ever play the game. Number 10. Glenn Robinson, 1994. Glenn Robinson played for Purdue University and was a standout by his sophomore season and led the nation in scoring in his junior season, averaging 30 points per game along with 11 rebounds, where he would make himself eligible for the NBA draft, getting selected by the Milwaukee Bucks #1 overall. He would lead all rookies in scoring with an average of 21 points per game, but finished third in the Rookie of the Year voting behind Grant Hill and Jason Kidd, who shared the award. While playing for the Bucks for 8 seasons, he teamed up with Ray Allen and Sam Cassell and helped lead the Bucks to the 2001 Eastern Conference Finals, losing to Allen Iverson and the Sixers. In his 8th season with the Bucks, he was seen as one of the franchise's best players, placing second all-time in Bucks scoring history only behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, averaging at least 20 points per game in 7 of his 8 seasons. And he would spend a season with the Atlanta Hawks and the Sixers before making his most impact as a role player for the San Antonio Spurs in the 2005 postseason, helping the Spurs win their first championship. In his last 3 seasons of his career, Robinson was still one of the NBA's most consistent players, but was forced to retire due to constant knee injuries, still finishing his career averaging over 20 points per game and one of the league's most dangerous front court players. While there are countless other underrated players in NBA history, the players picked with the #1 overall pick contain the players with the highest expectations. There are countless #1 overall picks that were great, and there were countless ones that were overlooked and lived up to all the expectations. So now that you heard the list of the 10 most underrated players, who do you believe is the most underrated player in NBA history? Leave it in the comment section below, but until then, it's been your boy, Johnny Walker LA, and I'm out. Bow.